Bonjour à tous. Je m'appelle Melissa Sora. My name is Melissa Sora, and I'm with the Federation of Alliances Françaises USA. You are in the right place if you are here for today's program, How to Retire in France with Adrian Leeds. A big thank you, un grand merci to our sponsors, France Today magazine and Bonjour Paris. The Alliance Française in the US is the largest Alliance Française network in the world, helping 25,000 learners of French learn French, live French, and love French every year. Please visit our website at afusa.org for a list of upcoming online cultural events, including next Monday's French American Histories, One Story, Two Narratives, From Allies to Challenges, followed by the One Film, One Federation December film, Bob le Flambeur, which will be the last of our Melville series. And then we'll have a few more events coming up in January, the Paris Deception, and Learn French in France, top immersion programs. And then the beginning of our French Cinematheque series starts in January as well. All the information and the registration is on afusa.org. Today's program is going to be recorded. So if you're not comfortable with that, please log out. If you have any technical issues, just log back in with the same Zoom link. Everybody is on mute, so please put your questions in the chat, and we will try to get to them at the Q&A at the end. And today's runtime is 1 hour. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Adrian Leeds. Adrian Leeds has lived in France for over 29 years. She is an HGTV personality regular on House Hunters International, and she's the founder of the Adrian Leeds Group, a licensed real estate agency and property consultation services. So Adrian, merci beaucoup for being with us here today, and je vous laisse la parole.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm very thrilled to be here. And in order to get started, I think the best thing for me to do is to go ahead and share my screen and start my presentation. If everyone agrees with me on that, here we go. I really want to welcome everybody for participating. For us, it's this evening because I'm sitting in Paris, France, so it's about 8 o'clock our time. And we're going to talk about how easy it is to retire in France. I'm going to give you 10 steps to make that happen. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So first of all, a little bit about us. We are property consultants, and we work primarily for the buyer. And we think of ourselves as French property the American way because we are Americans working for Americans. When I say Americans, by the way, this is North Americans, not just US, but also Canada. We also work very well with Australians and New Zealanders and other Anglophones. But we are a licensed real estate agency in France, and our services include consultation, property search for both rental and purchase. We do sales and listings. We can actually assist in a purchase or a sale, and we can list a property as well, so we can do both. And we do appraisals, we assist in finding financing, and we have resources for renovation and decoration as well. In fact, we are pretty much soup to nuts. Now, the reason we exist is really because there's no multiple listing service in France. And that's because you can't go to one agent and have access to everything like you can with a multiple listing service. So we help facilitate going out there, ferreting out the properties, working with the agents and the agencies, because this is a different process. You're dealing with different laws, you're dealing with a different language, different currency, different culture, different everything. So you can pretty much take anything you ever understood or learned about real estate in general, throw it out the window when you come to France and start all over. And we have been helping thousands of people do this, as a matter of fact, as long as more than 20 years. Now, here are the 10 easy steps to retiring in France. So heads up, here's how it goes. The first thing you want to do is consult, hopefully with us, to learn the steps and decide where to live in France that suits you. Now, I'm going to take each one of these things and go into them in detail. So this is just to give you an overview. The next step is to consult with an immigration advisor if necessary. It's not always necessary. I highly recommend consulting with professional financial advisors because you want to set yourself up so that you pay a minimal amount of tax. Then you prepare for your move. And that's different for everybody. And that's something you have to do on your own, but I'm going to get into detail on that. After that, you're going to apply and get a visa, because if you're going to spend more than 90 days in France within any 180-day period, you're going to need some sort of a visa. Once you have your visa, you're going to need a place to live, and we can certainly help you find that, whether it's a rental or purchase. Once you have that in place, it's time to pack your bags, ship your belongings if that's what you need to do, and get yourself ready to arrive in France. Once you're in France, you will need a bank account. And once you have that bank account and you have everything you need, you have the opportunity to create a whole new life in France. And here we go. So, consulting with us. It all starts with a one-on-one consultation with me, and it's never too early. I have some people who say, oh, well, we're not going to move for another year, so I think it's too early to talk to you. Not true. The earlier you have this conversation, the more prepared you're going to be. So it could be just an inkling, just a little idea in your head that you're thinking that moving to France is going to be, and maybe something for 3 to 4 years from now. Talk to me now so that you set yourself up correctly. I talk to people every single day who make these plans to go all over France to discover where they want to live. And that, my dear, is a waste of time. And the reason that's a waste of time is because everywhere you go, you are going to fall in love and you're just going to get confused. So what I recommend is that you watch this YouTube from a webinar that we did with the Alliance Française called How to Decide Where to Live in France, so that you get a better idea and you don't have to traipse all over the country. The reason that there's no reason to traipse all over the country is because if you do not consider the practical aspects, which are transportation access, weather, community, and healthcare, then you could easily end up in some beautiful, sweet little village and have none of those things and realize you've made a big mistake. And we don't want you to do that. So considering the practical aspects is very, very important. So if you have not seen this webinar, I highly recommend it. Now, the consultation fee that we do charge for the 2-hour visit that you have with me, whether it's on Zoom or in person, applies toward our search services, so nothing is lost along the way. And believe me, you will find that it's very well worth doing. I would like to say at this point, though, that you should avoid crowdsourcing. That means going on to Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and watching what other people have to say, because the people who are on the social media sites, maybe they just like being heard. Maybe they just want everybody to think they know more than anybody else. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do. But you can get an awful lot of mixed messages and it can be confusing. So I highly recommend seeking out the professionals, the people who really know what they're talking about. And the people who I know who have failed, and they are very few, but the people who have failed are the ones who have actually not done their homework first. They got on a plane, got here and went, okay, now we're either going to sink or swim. And in the end, they sank because they didn't know how to swim well. And so doing your homework in advance is a big advantage. Next, consult with an immigration advisor. Maybe you don't need an immigration advisor. Maybe it's a pretty standard carte de séjour visiteur that most retirees subscribe to, but there are lots of different kinds of visas. And if one of you, or one out of a couple, happens to have a European passport, then that might change things for the kind of visa that you get. So it's a good idea to consult with a professional. We also have a hand holder just to help you go through the process. And if you don't really need an attorney. So again, it really depends on your situation. And when we do this consultation, we're going to talk about that and figure out what kind of a person you need, or if anyone at all. Now, when applying for a visitor visa, the carte de séjour visiteur, the immigration authorities are going to ask you to sign a document promising that you won't work in France. But don't freak out about that. What that means is that you promise not to take a job away from a French national. And that means that if you're doing some work in the United States or Canada and you want to keep doing it, you're doing it remotely and you're working with a North American company or with your North American clients and you do it online, there is nothing wrong with that at all. The main idea is that the income you're making gets reported and applicable taxes are paid. That's really the only thing that France wants. Next, financial advisors. Can't begin to tell you how important this is. There is a tax treaty between France and the US and France and Canada, which means that you will not pay taxes on the same money twice. But when you become tax resident in France, which is different than having a visa, by the way. Tax residency means that you're in France more than 6 months a year, or it's where you call home. Your worldwide assets will become targets for inheritance taxes. And if you're retiring, then I have to assume that you're in the 50-year-old plus bracket. And maybe you need to be thinking about inheritance taxes for your kids and your loved ones, your family, your friends, whoever you're going to bequeath your assets to. And you really don't want them to necessarily pay a whole lot of inheritance taxes. So if you do this due diligence in advance with a professional advisor, you can save them a lot of money. Now, I mean, let's face it. You're going to be dead. Maybe you don't care. Okay. But it's one way to look at it. But if you really don't want your kids to be strapped for paying a lot of inheritance taxes, then you want to do this in advance. And it's a way of reducing or eliminating all kinds of taxation by talking to professionals in advance. But I'm going to tell you this. You are more likely to pay less tax in France in your retirement years than you would if you stayed in the US or Canada. And I know that's hard to believe, but it's the truth. Next, you're going to prepare for your move. And what does that mean? Well, first you want to learn French. You're going to enroll in the Alliance Française if you haven't already, and start learning French so that when you get here, you've got at least a good foundation, and then you can start practicing and actually get French out of your mouth, which takes a long time. And I don't want people to really beat themselves up over this. It just takes time to be able to comprehend and to speak. I joke that I thought I was going to be fluent in 3 months, and I got here and realized it was going to be a year. And after a year, I thought maybe 3. And after 3, I thought maybe 10. And at 10 years, I thought maybe 20. And now I'm here almost 30 years, and I actually could get it out of my mouth relatively well. But I am still not 100% fluent. And I have to tell you that the more I know, the more I realize how little I know. So start now. Now, if you're moving to France, you may want to either sell or rent the home you're living in. Maybe you just want, if you're renting, you just give it up and you have no worries. If you own a home, maybe you're not totally prepared to sell it, and therefore you want to rent it, but that's one of the things you'd want to prepare for. Now, I highly recommend downsizing. Divest of your unwanted possessions. Determine what you definitely want to bring to France and what you don't. You're going to make this a whole lot easier on yourself if you can do that. For those of you who read my newsletters, you probably know that I'm about to move out of my apartment for almost a year. And I realize now that in the last 29 and a half years living in France, I have accumulated a ridiculous amount of stuff. And so I'm trying to divest myself. So I know what a big job this is. While you're at it, though, do not divest of your bank accounts. Keep your bank accounts. Bank accounts in the US are going to be very important to you. You're going to want to have them probably the rest of your life for a lot of different reasons. So don't think that closing a bank account is going to just get one thing off your head, okay? And at the same time, you really will need to maintain some sort of an address in your home country. A non-taxable state is a good idea if you can make that happen. And meanwhile, you will want to arrange for someone else to get your mail. Now, I want to give you a tidbit. The US Postal Service, and I don't know about Canada, I don't think this is true for Canada, but believe it or not, the US Postal Service will forward your mail free of charge. So if whoever's getting your mail, they can probably scan some things and send them by email. Some things can't be scanned, like a brand new credit card, for example, or your checkbooks or something like that, or a passport that's been renewed, something really important. And believe it or not, if they stick a label on it or just write on it, forward to with your French address and drop it back in the mailbox, it will get to you 5 days later. And I swear this is true. I've been doing it for 29 years, so I know it. And if you want to test it with just a piece of garbage mail, be my guest. Now, it's also a good idea to maintain some sort of a US or Canadian phone number. The only reason I do that is actually for two-step verification when I buy something using my Capital One credit card. But Capital One, for example, will not do two-step verification to anything but a cell phone, and it has to be a US cell phone. So what I do is keep a pay-as-you-go T-Mobile. It happens to be T-Mobile. It could be any other service that puts $3 a month on it for me, and I keep an old phone with that US SIM card, and it works for me. And otherwise I wouldn't need it. So maybe it's not absolutely necessary, but it's a good idea to hold on to one. Now, I put Vonage phone in here because a Vonage phone is a VoIP phone, a voice over IP. You have to order it up when you're in the US. They send you a router. It has to go to a US address, but it gives you a US phone number. Now, that is very useful for people who are still doing business. They're sitting in France, but they're doing business with the US. And that means that their clients can call a US number, not a foreign number. It means they can call out from a US number. It means that when they leave messages, it creates a transcript and sends it as an email. So it's very useful. And if you use this link, that makes it very easy to set up. It's not something that everybody needs. I have one. I use it as a landline on my desk, and I find it very helpful and very useful. Now, for new visa holders who want to drive in France, you're supposed to get your French driving license within the first year of living in France. And if you are fortunate enough to be in a state with reciprocity, because there are, I think, about 13 or so states that have a reciprocity situation with France. So you come to France and you actually turn in your US license and get a French license in replacement. But here's another little trick. You're going to tell the DMV that you lost your license, so they send you a duplicate. And that way, when you turn in one of them to the French government, you will still have your other one for when you're back in the US and driving, so that you won't have to show them your French license. Now, if you're bringing a pet, they have to be declared. There are rules and regulations about that. They get their own little passport. It's so adorable. It's really cute. You're going to love that. So be sure to check the official customs site for information about how to bring your pet to France. Next, apply for your visa. It's not very complicated. You're going to go online to the official site. The link is right here in this presentation. And you're going to complete an online application, and then they will get you an appointment. And you have to physically go into the appointment. And they are done in certain cities, so be prepared to travel. Now, I'm going to say it again. Do not underestimate the value of working with professionals. And that is because you do not want to go to all this trouble, get to your appointment and not be prepared and have them turn you away. So working with a professional, we ensure that that doesn't happen. Now, they're going to ask for health insurance for the first year, and we have a link on our website to insurance specialists who have policies specifically for getting your visa. And I believe that Patty's going to put that link, Patty Sadowskis, who's here working with us, she's going to put that link in the chat so you can go back to that. And you can go onto our website and find it as well. Now, you also have to prove that you can support yourself, but supporting yourself is really only French minimum wage. So we're only talking about the equivalent of 1,385 euros per month after taxes. So it's not a huge amount of money. And the other thing you have to show is you have a place to live. You have to show a proof of accommodations. Don't worry about this catch-22 because I know you don't have a place to live yet. We are going to help you with that. We can provide you with that proof of accommodations so that you can, main idea is just a way to get the visa. Next, once you get your visa, which takes, once you get approval from the VFS, it takes only about 2 to 3 weeks to get your visa. That's what we hear from most people. So it's not a very long period of time. But once you get it, you're going to want, hopefully, us to help you find a place to live. Now, if you're making a property purchase, then we can help you assure that you can move directly into your new home as long as it's move-in ready and the purchase has been complete. You know, maybe you've gone through the closing, you have your deed, but you've got work you want to have done in the house or apartment. And so you may need temporary housing, or maybe you're going to wait until it is ready. That is entirely up to your situation. It's different for everyone. We can also find a rental apartment for you or a rental house, depending on where. And we need about 6 weeks in advance of your move-in date. Please try not to move in on September 1. And the reason for that is because everybody wants September 1. It's the #1 move-in date. And because everybody's on vacation in July and August, we have to start in June to even begin to get that date. So you're better off either getting that rental before the summer or later on in the fall when there's more inventory. Now, I'm warning you, this is the most difficult job we have. Finding the property is difficult because there's a huge housing shortage, particularly in cities like Paris and Nice. On top of that, the laws favor the tenant, not the landlord. And so the landlords have to be very choosy about who they put in the property. So now a landlord might have 10 or 15 dossiers that they want to go through. We joke that the tenant doesn't choose the landlord chooses the tenant. And it's not really a joke. I mean, the truth is that you can't be very choosy about the apartment. You're going to have to make some trade-offs. You're going to have to say, you know what? I can live without that bathtub. I can live with that shower for a while, because the good news is that every lease, especially in Paris and Nice, comes with a 30-day cancellation, which means that if for some reason that property, that apartment doesn't work for you, a few months down the road, you can take your time and find something else if that's what you want to do. Now, we can perform the search whether you're here or not. We can do it sight unseen. We do it all the time. We are not here to sell you anything. We are here to really make sure that we're finding the best property for you, and we know what a good property is. So you can either trust us or not. You can do the visits with us or not. Now, we do recommend renting a short-term apartment for the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks upon arrival, just to get yourself settled, get utilities put in place, get the property furnished the way you want it, you know, just arranging things rather than landing at the airport, taking a taxi and going straight to a brand new apartment where maybe the heat hasn't been on, maybe the utilities haven't been connected, things like that. So it's a good idea to just be prepared and have, you know, what you guys are starting to call an Airbnb, we call them a short-term rental. It's a good idea to have that in place first. And by the way, we do offer the service to get your utilities installed, which is gas, electricity, water, internet, TV, and telephone. What's next? You've got your place. Now you're going to pack your bags. So here we go. Now, maybe you have a lot of things to ship over. If you have a lot of things to ship, we are now working with a gentleman named Mike Quinting, who runs an agency called MTM. He is a specialist in international shipping, and he can really help you ferret out the best shippers at the best price and the best way to do that. He is not yet up on our website, but he will be soon. So if you want that information, just contact us and we'll connect you. If you have a limited quantity of personal belongings, then we recommend using a service like Send My Bag, because they can do small boxes, suitcases, things of that nature for not a lot of money. The other way to do it is to actually pack a big suitcase and take it with you on the plane and just pay the airline for the extra suitcase. So it really depends on what you're bringing over. You might not want to bring any kind of electronic devices that are not dual voltage. That's just really a waste of effort unless it's something special. The funny thing is that there are certain things that are really great to bring from the States. Linens in France are expensive. Sheets and towels, believe it or not, that's a great thing to bring over because they're more expensive here. But just about everything else you can get here, you know, with the exception of any personal items that you really enjoy from the US, and of course your personal belongings, your photos and other things. Now, you will need to complete the customs forms on things that you ship, but there is no tax, there's no customs taxes paid on personal effects if you ship them within the first year. So keep that in mind. And then be sure that you bring all your most important documents, whether it be electronic or originals, like your birth certificate, marriage certificate, divorce decree, any record of a name change, your proof of prior residences, and tax returns. Anything like that, you are definitely going to want to have with you. And then what? You arrive in France. I would avoid a move in the middle of summer. Again, simply because people are on vacation, businesses are closed, it can become a little more complicated. Also during the holiday season for the same reason. And the month of May, there are 5 French holidays in May, and the French tend to do what's called faire le pont, or make the bridge. So they tend to take long weekends during the month of May. So those are the times that your move can be a bit challenging. And as I said before, if you arrive on or about September 1st, then really the rental apartment needs to be secured in advance of the summer holidays, because the competition for housing at that time is absolutely fierce. Once you're here, time to set up a bank account. You will need a bank account. You cannot get utilities without it. It's not easy to get a bank account. Thanks to FATCA, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, which places regulations on foreign financial institutions across the world. They don't want to deal with Americans anymore. So opening a bank account in France is not easy. However, we can introduce you to a bank. We can help facilitate that. We do this in Paris and in Nice. You must be present at the bank. It cannot be done long distance. And they are going to ask for certain documents, such as a proof of residence and a tax return and some others. So be prepared, again, with those documents. And here's the way it works. French banks charge for their services. So expect to spend about 10 to 15 euros a month, which will cover your account. It will cover having a debit card. It will cover access to their online banking. But be expected to pay a little bit of money every month for that account. The best way to move money into that account from dollars to euros is to use a currency broker. Now, we have 3 currency brokers on our site that we recommend: Money Corp, OFX, and Currencies for You. And a currency broker will exchange the money for about 1% rather than 3%, which is what the banks will charge. And that is the difference between the buy and the sell rate. They also offer an awful lot of really important services. And so it's the best way and least expensive way to transfer money into your account. And one other small note, in the US, because of FATCA, if you have more than $10,000 value accumulated in foreign bank accounts, you have to report that on what's called an FBAR. There's no tax to pay on that. It's just a reporting procedure. So I wouldn't worry about trying to keep your account under $10,000. It's not that big of a deal. It's just an additional reporting document that you have to turn in with your tax return. But, you know, if you do keep less than $10,000 in your account, then you don't even have to worry about it. So you might want to just move money over little by little. Now you're ready. You're here. You're going to create a new life in France. How exciting. You are ready to become a bona fide French resident. After 90 days with your visa, you are eligible to apply for PUMA, the Universal Health Protection, which will pay up to 70% of your healthcare costs, even though you never paid into it. It's amazing. Okay, this gives you a carte vitale. And you can then top it up with a mutuelle insurance policy. So if you don't want to have any out of pocket, especially for, you know, for any kind of serious situation, major healthcare, then all you have to do is add an insurance policy on top of it. I highly recommend attending our monthly coffee gatherings. We have a gathering in Paris on the second Tuesday of every month called Après-midi. And now we're doing it in Nice every other month on the last Thursday of the month. And you can go onto our website and find out who's going to be speaking. But it's a great way of meeting other expats and making friends. So join organizations, attend meetups, and make friends. I'm going to tell you right now that you are going to make more friends in 3 months of living in France than you have ever made in your entire life. And I make this promise to you. And the reason for that is because when you meet these people, they're just like you. They've gone through the same situation. They're intelligent. They're well-educated. They're risk takers. They've traveled. They love France. You're going to have so much in common with the people you meet. It'll blow your mind. And I'm telling you that it's an amazing situation where you're going to just come across these people who you feel like you've known your whole lives. So just know that you're not going to be here long on your own. You're going to make an awful lot of friends. And then once you do that, travel around France, go see all those gorgeous places, travel to the neighboring countries. It's so easy. It's so inexpensive. And you are going to have the time of your life. So go and enjoy your new life in France. Now, just on a final note, if you're working with us, just so you know, we have only your interests in mind. That's all we care about. We can find a property for you as a renter or a buyer. We provide all the resources and all the professionals. These are the professionals that we've vetted, we know are going to take care of you, so you don't have to worry about that. We back that up. We do all the due diligence and we advise all along the way. So you have no need for expensive translations of French documents because they're written in French legalese and they're not easy to understand. But we are here to help you. We will manage the process from beginning to end, and we kind of think of ourselves as insurance because we will do our damnedest to never let you make a bad decision. So here's the way to do it. Join our community, subscribe to our weekly nouvelle lettre. I write 3 times a week. There's a tremendous amount of information on the website and in these newsletters. If you haven't seen us on House Hunters International, then please check out our various episodes. I have 2 in the can that have not yet aired, and we'll certainly let you know about that. Attend our monthly coffee gatherings. You're going to meet a lot of people. The speakers are really interesting. It's always fun. And we record them so you can actually go to our YouTube channel and watch them whenever. Again, book a personal or group consultation with us. And of course, participate in webinars such as this one. And if you check our website for upcoming events, we do them all year long. So just on a final note, before we get into a Q&A, we have helped thousands of people make this move. So we do know what we're talking about. And it starts with this consultation, which is really to strategize how to make it the most successful and why you don't need to traipse all over France to figure out where to live. But I really want you to just get good advice. Pay a professional to put you on the right path. It's really important. But don't let fear get in the way of your dreams. It's really doable. It's just an adventure. And I want you to take and replace the word expectations with hopes so that you will never be disappointed. This photograph is of John Garland Jones. He lives in Nice. He came to me and he said, I have always dreamed of a singing career, but I never pursued it. And he is now in Nice singing his heart out. And if it worked for him, it can work for anyone. So on that note, I'm going to stop my screen and let you guys ask me anything. So we're just waiting for Patty's going to read the
Yeah. No, we've got
questions.
Lots of questions. A healthcare related question.
Okay.
From Michael. How expensive is a mutual?
Santé Paul.
Are pre-existing conditions an issue? Are things any different for 65 plus?
Well, okay, so that's 3 questions, and all of which are better for an insurance professional than me. But I will tell you this. I have a mutual now. I am 71 years old. I have a mutual that's 100% coverage with no deductible. And it just went up from $1,650 to about $1,900 a year. I was told by an insurance agent that we're working with now that he can find me a policy that's half that. I haven't seen it yet. I sent him my policy to see if he can match it for less money. But the bottom line is that it's not very expensive. Yes, it gets more expensive as you get older. That is what happens. I have no idea about pre-existing conditions because I think it really depends on the insurance company and the policy itself. So it's just a matter of shopping it, but we do have the brokers who can do that for you. Okay.
Okay, here's another question. If I move to a place like Nice, do I need a French driver's license?
No. First of all, Nice has the most amazing public transportation system, and it's a very small and wonderful city, and it's easy to get around on by foot and by bus and tram and train. There are occasions I rent a car, and I do not have a French driving license, so I'm going to admit to being a bad girl. Because when you rent a car without a French license, the rental agencies basically don't care. They just look at your US license. It is a risk that I take. So it really depends on the risk you want to take. But you certainly don't need a car or wouldn't even want a car if you're living in Nice. It's one of the reasons it's such a fantastic place. You can get on the tramway in the middle of town and in 20 to 25 minutes be at the front door of the airport. It's fantastic. Okay, Patty, next.
Hey, I'm looking for more because there's so many.
Good.
There are so many. We've got questions about our bed sizes different. Yes.
Well, slightly different,
Yeah.
right? What you say?
Yeah.
Slightly
Yeah.
different.
Slightly different.
Twin beds are anywhere between 80 and 90 centimeters. A double bed's 140 centimeters, a queen bed's 160 centimeters, and a king is 180 centimeters. How that converts to inches, don't have a clue.
I don't have any idea either.
Right.
I don't have any idea. Okay. A question about renting. How picky are landlords about pets, specifically cats?
Ah, what a good question. First of all, they probably would be very picky, but they cannot deny you a pet. So when you rent, you don't want to tell them you have a pet. They don't need to know you have a pet. So when you submit your dossier, you just don't include that information.
Exactly. Exactly. You are entitled to have pets.
That's exactly right.
It's the law. It's the law. But if you tell them you have pets, they might find another reason to deny you.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, let's see what else.
Find me a good one.
I know, I know. Well, there was one about can we help with property in smaller towns?
Of course we can. We can help with property anywhere in France. I'm going to probably try to talk you out of smaller towns, however. Depends. And that has to do with all the practical reasons for living in certain places, one of which has to do with being in a medical desert. If you're a retiree, you're older than 50, 60, 70, maybe you don't want to be very far from a good hospital. Just an idea. I don't know if you guys read my story recently about my cousin coming to Nice for Thanksgiving and immediately falling and breaking her leg and getting rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, it was a 20-minute tram ride directly to the hospital for me in Nice. I was there once or twice a day. It turned out to be a very pleasant and easy and simple situation, believe it or not. The healthcare was amazing and insanely inexpensive. And so overall, we had a great experience. If we had been in a small town, it would not have been the same. Not at all. So we were very happy that we had all of that easy access. And of course, the people in the hospital, many of them spoke English. Some of them spoke Italian with my cousin who lives in Italy. And again, and it was funny because she said, oh, thank goodness, this happened to me in France and not in Italy, because it wouldn't have been the same. So these are some of the reasons why you don't want to be very remote. Okay, what else?
Okay. A question, if you're doing the 1-year visa, are you still a target for inheritance tax?
Sure. There's the difference between the visa, which allows you to live in France more than 90 days, and being tax resident in France, which means that you're living there more than 6 months, or it's where you call home. So yes. I'm waiting.
Okay, I know. I'm looking through here. A banking question. If one already has a Euro bank account outside France, but still within the Schengen area, is one still required to establish a French bank account?
Well, I think that bank account might help facilitate an awful lot of payments and things. But it's still a good idea to have a local French bank account. Patty, maybe you can actually
Well, the
that.
one reason I would highly recommend having and using a French bank account is keeping that money in the account that you need to renew your visa once you're in France.
That's true. That's right.
It's happening that some of the local areas are requesting translations if people are submitting their US documents. But if you keep that money, just that French minimum wage in your French bank account, then all you have to submit to renew your visa is your French bank statements, and it makes your life much, much easier.
And you actually know this firsthand, I know.
I know this firsthand.
That's right. Okay. Thank you for that. Because
Well,
I haven't dealt with the visa in a long time.
It was a lady at the prefecture in Paris who said, "You live in France now, you need to have your money in France." She's the one person who made me keep money in my French bank account. But going forward, and the other thing too, France doesn't care how much money you have. So even if you show them that French bank account, you've only got that minimum amount needed for your visa. That's all they care. They don't care that you have hundreds or millions in other US bank accounts.
Right.
That means nothing to them. They just want to know, do you qualify to not renew, but apply for your carte de séjour?
Right. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Let's see. There's lots of questions about, are the slides going to be available? And as Melissa's mentioned, the slides, you can see them on the recording. We'll have the recording available.
Mhm.
And
I would help you out here, but for some reason I can't see the questions.
oh, here we go. What is the process for getting an initial consultation with you?
Well, you can answer that.
Well, and I put that information in the chat too. You can just email us at info@adrianleeds.com. Or you can go to the website and click on the consult with us form, and we'll send you some more information and get your consultation scheduled.
Patty's actually the one that does this. For those of you
I
who
do
don't
that.
know, this is Patty Sadowskis. She's my right hand. She's been with us 8.5 years. I hired her the day after she arrived in France, and she happily lives in Nice. And the image behind her is what she sees from her apartment. That's her view.
Not that sunset every day, but oh, here's an interesting one, and we can answer it to an extent. Very roughly, including paying a consultant, what will this cost, excluding the cost of housing?
What is what cost?
1,000, 50,000. I'm assuming just retiring in France if you pay consultants, but it's nowhere near 10 to 50,000. No.
Oh no! Oh no!
No.
Not at all. I mean, I think that if you make an investment of probably, well, I know how much my consultation is. I'd say a couple of $1,000
That would be,
would get you plenty of what fantastically wonderful advice.
and
And you'd be able to do it correctly. Oh, and interestingly, before everyone came on, we were talking about the cost of living. And the truth is that it will cost you half as much to live in France as it does at least in the US.
Mhm.
I'm not sure about Canada, but you can literally live here for half the cost. And if you're earning $3,000 to $4,000 a month, you can actually live very, very comfortably in France on that amount of money. It's really amazing. I mean, the only thing I can think of that's more expensive in France than it is in the US is gasoline. I can't think of anything. I can't think of a single thing that's more expensive
Over-the-counter drugs.
or more expensive.
Like ibuprofen and things like Tylenol,
Yeah, but
over-the-counter
prescription
drugs.
drugs are free.
Right. But no, I was talking to my niece today who's visiting from Seattle, and she was commenting how everything is so much cheaper.
Yeah, no, it's really shocking. Yeah.
Okay, a question we have is, do we handle long-term rentals?
Of course we do. We handle everything related to property.
Right.
Okay.
And by handling, it will assist with a search. We don't manage the long-term rentals.
Right,
We'll assist with a search for a long-term rental. We have a question about what is the expected rental rate for an apartment in Nice?
What size? Where?
It depends on the size, yeah.
I would estimate that a studio is going to be in the 800 euro per
Mhm.
month range. A one bedroom is going to be in the 1,000 to 1,200 range. And a two bedroom is going to be in the 1,500 to 2,000 range.
Perfect.
Depends.
There'll be some variation, but it'll depend on the apartment.
Depends on
itself,
location and amenities and sea view,
location,
balcony,
and-
AC, things like that.
and
Yeah.
even if it's furnished versus unfurnished.
Yeah, of course. Furnished is going to be a little more than unfurnished.
Mhm.
Unfurnished is a 3-year lease. Furnished is a 1-year lease. That's the way the law is written, and you have to follow the law. You don't get to make up your own leases.
Okay, here's a question we have. Is it possible to retire in France half-time and in the US half-time? If you were there under 6 months, do you pay the French taxes?
If you live in the US or Canada under 6 months a year and you still call it home, then you are not tax resident in France and therefore you do not pay French taxes. Pretty simple.
Yeah. And a similar question, how do you decide between full on moving to France completely versus being a part-time resident and purchasing a fractional ownership?
Well, I'll tell you what happens. You can come part-time, but you're not going to want to leave. So
Right.
you start out part-time and you see if you like it or not. And I'll make you a bet that you don't want to go home, and then you will decide to become a full-time resident. Then your vacations will be spent on the other side of the pond instead. Now, we do have a lot of fractional property owners who start out that way and then end up selling their fractions so that they can buy their own place. Happens all the time because they've gotten that taste and it worked out well. They were able to sell their fraction at a profit, and then they go buy their own place so that they can spend more time in it and whenever they want. That happens all the time. So if what you want to do is put your foot in the, put your toe in the water and just try it out, then a fractional ownership property is a really good way to go. We happen to have an amazing property for sale at this very moment, directly on the Promenade des Anglais in Nice. It is a large studio apartment with a private garden right on the water. Shares are very inexpensive, and it would be a great way to test out living in Nice. No question about it. Everyone who's stayed there, we call it the 99 Prom because it's located at 99 Promenade des Anglais. Everyone who stayed there has really loved it. It's brand new, out of the box, not missing anything whatsoever. And you can go onto our website under fractional properties to find it.
And I'm putting a link in the chat.
Oh, good.
And we have an interesting question. Can you speak to the cons of retiring in France versus just the pros?
Well, there aren't any cons. There's no cons. I can't even think of a single one. Like if I were to move back to the US, I can't even imagine such a thing because I don't want to go back to driving a car, owning and operating a car. So there's only one place that would be, and that would be New York City. Otherwise, I'm stuck. If I go somewhere where I would have a car, then in another 10 years, 10, 15 years, I probably don't want to be driving that car at all. I already don't want to be driving that car. So I could end up like in an assisted living or something like that. That sounds like that's a death sentence to me. Cons? No. Can you think of any cons?
No. I mean, the things that people have asked questions about are the inheritance tax, but those are things that you can prepare for.
Well, that's it. Okay, I'm working
Right.
on that myself right now. I'm moving a lot of property over to my daughter in order to eliminate as much inheritance tax as possible. I wish I had done it in the beginning. If I had, talked to professionals before moving over here, of course, that was 30 years ago when I was young. I probably would have set things up a little differently and been smarter about it. That's why we believe in talking to the professionals before you come. But no, I mean, we're sitting in the middle of Europe. I'm going to Amsterdam on Friday for 2 nights. How else would I be able to do that? I get on the train. It's 3.5 hours. It's fantastic. It's very inexpensive. The ability to travel all over Europe, either by train or plane, even by car, is so fantastic. If I were living in the US, couldn't do that. I can't, let's put it this way. I'm not going back, okay?
Me neither. Me neither. And for those who don't know me, my sister also moved to Nice, and she's never going back.
And she's glowing.
She's
Okay,
never going back.
We have 3 minutes. Find some really good questions, Patty.
Well, we do have a question related to how has the Israeli war affected the climate in France? Do Americans feel safe?
Americans or American Jews?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I don't feel any less safe myself than I ever did. This is a very safe place to live. I live in the Marais, which is, there's a very large Jewish population. It's amazing how I have discovered how many people who I do business with are Jewish. My post woman is Jewish. My dry cleaner is Jewish. My plumber is Jewish. My optical shop people are Jewish. My my shoe repair and locksmith is Jewish. It's incredible. Okay. I know more Jews in France than I ever knew in the United States, believe it or not. They're in all walks of life. They don't seem to have any issues. Of course, we're all very upset about what's happening. The war in Israel has certainly affected people's ability to make decisions. So we see that people are kind of holding tight to see what's going to happen. But no, I don't feel any less safe at all in any way, shape, or form. It's the rise of anti-Semitism is, of course, very upsetting, but there's a huge movement against it. France has openly acknowledge that they are against that. They're doing everything in their power, and it just is what it is. And it's really not much different in France than anywhere else in the world. That's the thing. There's anti-Semitism everywhere. I grew up in the neighborhood that David Duke in the United States was a congressman. And so it's just something we live with. But no, do I have fear? No. It is now 9 o'clock. My time,
Right.
it's the end.
It's the end. Yeah.
It's the end. Do we want to take one more question just for the hell of it? Since
Just
Let's
for
take
the
one last question. Yeah, thank you.
one last question. I don't want to end on this conversation about
um yeah. Now I have to find one last question. Well, I was starting to answer somebody directly about if you don't pay French taxes, are you still eligible for the French healthcare system?
That's a good question.
It's yes.
Because the answer is yes.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a little secret, okay? And the secret is that when you get your visa and you are living in France more than 6 months a year, that you are supposed to turn in a French tax return because you become tax resident in France. But the tax authorities aren't actually, they don't care about you because you're going to turn in a zero return. You're just work for them. So, it's not as important for you to turn in a tax return from the beginning. You should really just relax about that. You can do it down the road. You can turn in a few returns at one time. In fact, you can even get your carte de résident without ever having turned in a French tax return, because as a retiree, France will not tax your retirement income or your dividends, and therefore you have no taxes to pay in France. So I think that's an up note. Wouldn't you say?
Indeed. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Adrian and Patty, for all of this amazing information and for taking all of our questions. And thank you to all of you for attending today.
Melissa, no. The thanks goes to you and the Alliance Française Federation, and to all of you out there who were on with us. We had a very large and wonderful crowd today. I'm very pleased about that. And again, anything you need, we're here, and we'll do this again.
Yep.
I hope.
That would be wonderful. Merci beaucoup et bonne fête
Great. Thank
de
you,
fin d'année.
everybody.
Oh yes, happy holidays to everyone. Ciao, ciao.